Here are details on the eviction moratorium and specific loopholes that you can look out for. Hello, Patriots! Yeah, that was kind of lame, but it felt right, so I might go with it. So my husband and I became landlords, which I don't love the title, so property owners? We became property owners recently, and therefore in the middle of a pandemic and an eviction moratorium, which was just extended. And since I don't really believe anything that the media says anymore, thanks 2020, I figured I would research it on my own because I have quite a few questions about it. So here are details on the eviction moratorium and specific loopholes that you can look out for, regardless of whatever side you're on in this quest for making or keeping money. Anyways, so the CDC extended the eviction moratorium until October 3rd. Prior to this, part of the CARES Act last year, there was legislation that didn't allow evictions. When that ended, then CDC came in and said, hey, if we kick everyone out, they're all going to congregate because they won't have a place to live, so they're going to be like on the streets or in shelters or whatever, and that's going to cause COVID-19 to go crazy, especially in the Delta variant area. So they said, we'll extend it. There are definitely questions going around about the constitutionality of that. I have heard people saying that the Supreme Court struck it down, so what the heck? That's not true. There were quite a few judges on the Supreme Court that didn't agree with it. However, at the time, there were like 3 weeks left before the moratorium ended. So they basically said, if we kick everyone out now, it could cause an issue, but why don't we just give them the 3 weeks until it ends to get their finances in order, and then it'll run out anyway, and then they might be evicted, but whatever. They weren't expecting the CDC to continue this. So now that it is, it'll probably go back to the courts to figure out the constitutionality of it. That we can't really control. All we can control at the moment is what this order actually is and how we can get around it if we need to. So there are a few things that you need to know about this. Whether you are a renter who can't pay their rent, or if you're a landlord property owner who's like, I have a mortgage to pay and I need someone to pay their rent, or I need to evict them. So first thing, this does not apply to everyone. It's a fairly specific amount of people that this actually applies to. First, I think this is pretty widely reported. You have to be living in a county that is considered a high or substantial rate of infection or community transmissibility. That accounts for over 88% of counties in the United States right now. So odds are you're probably gonna fall into that. However, that is not the only thing that you have to fall into in order to not be allowed to be evicted. The order itself, which I will link down below, it is directly from cdc.gov. It says, a landlord, the legal right to pursue eviction, shall not evict any covered person, note that, from any residential property, from any county or U.S. territory that falls into those high or substantial levels of community transmission of COVID-19. So what's really important is if you know, are you a covered person or is the person who you want to evict a covered person? So here's the definition. They lay it all out for us. So nice of them. First, they have to be able to prove that you have used your best efforts to obtain all available government assistance for rent or housing. The second thing, honestly, sounds like pretty much everyone. The person has to make less than $99,000 a year if they're single, or less than $198,000 a year if they are filing jointly, or they didn't report any income in 2020, or they received a stimulus check. I feel like everyone and their mother received a stimulus check, so I don't think that's going to count very many people out. These next things I don't think are being really widely discussed. And I have heard that landlords are taking their tenants to court and winning. So if you are considering not paying your rent, pay specific attention to this part to not have to go through court. Number 3, they have to be unable to pay their rent because of loss of household income, loss of hours at work, a layoff, or extraordinary medical expenses. So if you kept your job or you still have the same amount of income as before and you've just decided to not pay, that's not going to stand up in court. Next thing is that they have to be providing their best effort to make some kind of payment. It could be a partial payment, and it only takes into account non-discretionary expenses. So What I have heard is when they go to court and they find out that you have been taking vacations or you bought a new car or a jet ski or whatever, you're spending your money on discretionary fun things and you aren't paying your rent, they're gonna allow them to evict you. Then next is that the eviction is going to likely render this individual homeless. So if you have a place to go, you might not win your eviction case. And then the last thing I already mentioned, which is that they live in this high or substantial area. But one thing to note about that is if you're in a county that is teetering on the edge of moderate or substantial, if your county flips over to moderate, you no longer fall into that. So last week you couldn't be evicted and this week you could be. So watch out for that too. A couple other things. One, this does not preclude the landlord from getting their money. So like just because you can't be evicted doesn't mean that you aren't stacking up a sizable debt that you could be sued for. And a lot of landlords have in their leases that if you're late on your payments, you are charged an interest on that. So not only do you have to pay your monthly rent back, then also there's going to be, 18% interest tacked onto that. And of course they could sue you and garnish your wages. So watch out. And then last thing is this does not stop anyone from evicting someone because of criminal behavior. If there's criminal activity that goes on in the home and that is the reason for eviction, you're not excluded. So I just wanted to make this video for anyone who thinks that they might be stuck because they can't evict someone, or even if you are someone who's down on their luck and you fall into all 6 of these categories, you're safe for right now. But remember, you're gonna have to pay it back, because this will not last forever.